Good evening. The average person doesn't know or necessarily care much about public infrastructure until something goes wrong, at which point the men and women who have dedicated their lives to the care and feeding of our community's largest investment are either criticized or hailed as heroes, and not much in between. We see them around town picking up garbage, stringing up holiday lights, driving a snowplow or street sweeper, basically doing for our community as a whole all the necessary things to keep our city running. When I started at the city a couple of years ago, I learned pretty quickly that our public works team members are hidden heroes. They go about their work quietly and unassuming, taking on tasks that are incredibly varied. And before I began work at the city, I never stopped to think about who's mowing the grass and keeping those things maintained. This past summer, public works staff led the planting of American serviceberry bushes on the banks of Jordan Creek in Springfield. The plantings will stabilize the banks of the Jordan Creek adjacent to an EPA-funded cleanup site of a former gas station. These are supplemental plantings to aid in the original green space created by the project in 2002. And at the conclusion of that cleanup, DNR gave the site a clean bill of health. Long before we see scenes like this, the Public Works team has created a snow and ice removal plan for the entire city. Teams mobilize late into the evening or in the wee hours of the morning in what may feel like a never-ending battle to keep the snow and ice off of our roadways. The Public Works teams plan for and affix bike lane markings to Springfield's growing network of a bike lane network. 2 more miles of lanes were added and opened on Blackman Road from Sunshine to Dan Kinney Park just this year. Over the past few years, we've added a total of 21 miles of bike lanes. Yes, we're cheering about. Traffic Engineering Division of Public Works began a stop sign replacement program. The federal requirements caused us to have to replace about 4,500 different stop signs. To meet those new requirements, we've used aluminum on the existing stop signs to recover them with high-intensity faces, and that will last about 10 years. Public Works may be best known, though, for emergency response. Pictured here, they work in the aftermath of a fire. This crew brought down the remains of a fire-damaged building after it was completely gutted by flames and multiple explosions. With special equipment and training, the men and women of Public Works are ready to stand by to provide an all-hazards response. Public Works teams are usually among the first responders. When you think about it, in order for ambulances, fire trucks to get through, there's a lot of heavy trees and other debris that have to be cleaned up before people can get in, so Public Works are often first on the scene. And here in the previous picture, they were repairing street lights. An essential role of Public Works is that of owner of much of the public space in the city, and it's our job to furnish the place public art is to be. The structures owned and operated by Public Works can and arguably should be the host works of art. Whether more suitable for larger durable works or even temporary, the options are almost endless. We're always looking for ways to partner with artists and organizations to install artwork, and there's lots of ideas for that. Few people know that the city of Springfield we own a cemetery, Hazelwood Cemetery. It's 145 years old. First opened in 1867, the cemetery is a 63-acre park nestled into what is now one of the busiest retail, commercial, and residential areas over on Sunset. The resurfacing of city streets every summer brings the need to replace pavement markings on the new surface. Road striping crews literally walk through traffic, keeping drivers off the newly placed markings until they are ready to drive on. There are 498 lane miles of paving markers in the city. We do occasionally get letters and thank yous, much like Megan was expressing about the work that was done next to ideaXfactory. This was a letter from a lady that we received just this past week who was thanking them for helping in their neighborhood and putting things back where they needed to go. In addition to responding to disasters in our own city, Public Works also responds to pleas for help throughout the region. Dump trucks are sent to communities to assist with debris removal following storms or to haul much needed materials for projects required to rebuild buildings or even rebuild lives. There are 555 miles of sidewalk, enough to walk all the way to Minneapolis. All of these are inspected during surveys that Public Works conducts. A sidewalk survey typically seeks to identify tripping hazards or other unsafe walking surfaces. Our latest survey identified about $27 million of needs across our sidewalk system. And we have a dream to make a more walkable Springfield. There's also 1,935 miles of city streets. If you laid them end to end, we could get to San Francisco. There are 675 miles of snow routes, enough to follow a snowplow all the way to New Orleans if they needed one. It's also public works staff that you see hanging Christmas lights on historic City Hall or banners in Jordan Valley Park. There's very little infrastructure in our city that the public works team doesn't touch, and they're very creative. When I wanted to go red for Heart Month, they added gels and red uplighting to the Jefferson Avenue footbridge, and they didn't even complain about it. Here are more teams working on those new sidewalks. As you know, sidewalks encourage people to get out in their neighborhoods and walk and get to know one another. The city is proud to partner with the Healthy Living Alliance to do a walkability study, and we have a dream to make our city more connected so that people can get out and about and walk to and from. Public works staff are also great communicators. Springfield residents, businesses, commuters, and stakeholders got the chance to comment and ask questions about planning for infrastructure improvements to the James River Freeway and Campbell Avenue corridor. That interchange of James River Freeway is one of the key economic centers for our region. Public Works staff most recently helped me and the Public Information Department with an event to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. That event took place in the public square, and you can guess who built the 16-foot by 30-foot screen, Public Works. They also created a time capsule for us to embed in the square that evening, and it required quite a bit of work. A new base required custom forming, built from scratch from the concrete crew, working with our cabinet maker for precision woodworking. Each of the two parts had lifting hooks cast into them so they could be moved with a forklift. A complete, custom, one-of-a-kind, purpose-built, reinforced concrete monument that doubled as a time capsule container, and they built it in less than a week. So that's why Public Works team at the city are my hidden heroes.